All right, I'm Allison Hart. I'm the CEO of the Gresham Area Chamber of Commerce. It's so great to see a full room this morning. I think this program is particularly important because many of you know that the Gresham area and Troutdale, we have the largest plots of industrial-ready land to go. And the reason why I'm bringing this up in the transportation light is because in order for us to really be a thriving concern and grow our economic development, we need our transportation to work to bring our workers to our locations. And that's so key for jobs and for recruitment. And so I'm really, really pleased to be hosting this forum today on the transportation projects that are happening in East County. And these are particularly important to us because we have the opportunity now to give input to what's going to happen, which will impact our region. And this is in a much larger perspective for years to come, not just right now. And so we're going to be talking about the TriMet Service Enhancement Plan, which will impact our residents, our businesses, our retail areas. And this is our opportunity as a group to really ask the leader, the man in charge, and tell them what we want. And so I ask that you do that. You know, say what you need. That's part of what we're providing at these forums, is that you're able to have FaceTime with the leaders in our community that are making the decisions. And that's why I'm so pleased to have Neil McFarland and Shirley Craddock here. And Shirley's going to be talking about the Powell Transit, the Powell Division transit project, and that is also very important to our region, to have bus rapid transit system that's going to enhance economic development and get people from the downtown hubs out to our community colleges, out to our work sites, and that type of thing. So this is, for me, I think a key thing to our growth as a region and our opportunity to provide input where that input will be heard and implemented into the programs and projects. So with that, I'd also like to thank our sponsors for today, PGE and Riverview. And Larry, where are you? Larry, thank you, from Riverview. And Gresham Barlow School District, which is our education sponsor. I'd also like to acknowledge our elected officials in the room, and we have Gresham Councilor Kirk French, we have Fairview Councilor Ted Tosterud, and we have Eric Anderson with Troutdale, and Eric is also the new executive director of the East Metro Economic Alliance. So I'm looking forward to a lot of partnership with him. We've already met. We're really excited about how the Chamber and EME can work together to help grow our region in an economic perspective. I'd also like to acknowledge our Chamber board, Lynn Snodgrass and Matt Miller, and am I missing anybody? I don't think so. And I'm going to hand the program off to Andre Wang, who said he has a bit of a frog in his throat this morning, but he said he would gracefully move forward. So thank you very much, Andre.
Good morning, everyone. And by the way, I'm not the Dalai Lama, as some have mistaken me to be. Well, good morning. Thank you for being here. So one of the main pieces of economic development here in East County is transportation. Movement of commerce and people is vital to a thriving community. Part of this effort is the Powell-Division Transit and Development Project, which is a joint effort with Metro and TriMet to improve transit between Portland and Gresham. So between 2014 and 2015, TriMet will be gathering feedback from riders, residents, businesses, neighborhood groups to get feedback on a long-term vision for transit service in our area. So today's program is going to be both a presentation but also informational for our speakers, for our panel, to get feedback from you on what that vision would look like. So with us today are the key players in this venture. Metro Councilor Shirley Craddock and General Manager of TriMet, Neil McFarland. Councilor Craddock, as we know, is served as a Gresham City Councilor, and then serves as a Councilor of District 1 in Metro and was just re-elected to her second term. Mr. McFarland was appointed General Director of TriMet in 2010, but he served as Director of Capital Projects at TriMet since 1998. Mr. McFarland will go first with his presentation, followed by Councilor Craddock. So please welcome Neil McFarland.
Well, thank you all for the warm welcome. Though it's a bit of a rainy day out, we know we're Oregonians. We put up with it. I would tell you that I had a lovely day yesterday. Took an extra day off for my birthday. and spent the time on that mountain that you could normally see out the windows here. So again, love this region, love everything about it, and I'm really glad to be here in Gresham this morning. I particularly want to acknowledge Allison Hart's great partnership with TriMet in connecting our services with your businesses and your employees. We'll continue to work in that regard and actually have some new opportunities related to that we'll talk about later in this presentation. Before I get to the service enhancement plan on the Powell-Division corridor, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on TriMet. As you probably know, TriMet is a bit of a unique enterprise. We actually, much like a business, ask people to actually invest in their service. They pay a fare to use our service. And we do actually then become very business-like in our orientation. So essentially, our customers speak with their wallets every day, just like yours do. And so we have an embedded motivation to offer high-quality, good service. Related to that, I also wanted to take a moment and just sort of spell out to you the different kinds of services and, if you will, different kinds of missions that TriMet has in terms of delivering transportation service to our region. First of all, we do get employees, your employees, to work and your customers to your business on a regular basis. Second mission is to ease congestion, especially so that during peak hours people can commute and freight can move on the freeway system. Third, we provide a critical service to moving kids, seniors, people with disabilities, and those who otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to participate fully in our society. And fourth, we help to shape the region so that we can address growth in a smart way that reduces the impacts of sprawl and congestion that would otherwise occur. So let me do you a real quick, if you will, progress report on this, on each of these missions. Related to getting people to work. Every day, somewhat over 300,000 people step on board a TriMet bus or train. About a third of those are actually connecting people to jobs. Annually, that equates to about 100 million rides a year that we offer on our system. And during the last 15 years, we've actually gotten more efficient with those rides, offering those rides, keeping those services running at actually fewer hours on the street. Related to easing congestion, one statistic I like to share with everyone is that when you look at our region population, our service area population, about 24th in the nation, yet we're number 9 in per capita ridership in the nation. If you sort of look at that in another way, about 78% of our riders are actually what we call choice riders. They have a car at home or they have another way to move about the region. So we're doing a pretty good job of pulling people out of their single occupancy vehicles and onto our system, which then again creates capacity for freight and other higher volume movement on the overall roadway system. According to the Texas Transportation Institute, TriMet saves the region about $150 million a year in reduced congestion costs. Westside Max, for example, can carry the equivalent of over 2.5 lanes of traffic on the Sunset Highway. So there's probably no way short of a depression, which none of us want to see, to actually solve congestion. But we do a pretty good job of shaving the peak down to make sure that the region continues to move. Third, I noted that we provide a critical service for citizens of our region, particularly seniors and people with disabilities. We provide about 1 million rides a year, door-to-door service with our lift system, providing needed accessibility for people who otherwise might be locked at home and shut off from the services and connections that they need to be a fully efficient citizen. This kind of mobility isn't what you would call efficient, but it's critically important for the people that we serve. And then finally, related to shaping our region, we help with businesses and with many others in terms of the development of our overall region. Experts tell us right now that we're expected to grow in the next 20 years about 400,000 people. That's another city of Portland added to our region over the next 20 years. So we need smart strategies to be able to handle that. And we are working in key corridors like the Division Powell corridor, like Southwest Barber, to begin to develop and craft the solutions that will help ensure mobility for that challenging future ahead. So those are our 4 missions, but as I said, we do operate like a business. We have an enterprise that requires us to balance a budget every year, and we do that through fares, through the payroll tax, which business generally supports, and also through a series of grants that we get from the federal government and others. But like all businesses, we're also focused on our cost structure. And in that regard, we have made some, I think, dramatic improvements over the last few years. We've certainly continued to put service where it is most efficient, where we can actually carry more people at lower cost. We also have been, since really 2003, reducing administrative employee health care and pension costs. And we fought for, over the last few years, a tough but fair change in our labor contract, which this year is saving us about $4.8 million in costs. And we're continuing with that fair and firm posture as we look ahead to renegotiating a contract which is now actually expired. And we actually are hopeful that we can actually begin to reach agreement on that before an arbitration. So we have been working very hard to create a more sustainable cost structure, and I think we have succeeded in a large part, but we have a lot more work to do, and I would tell you that the TriMet board and I are completely committed to continuing to make TriMet a more efficient tool for the region as we advance. With those cost structure reforms in place, we've actually been able over the last couple of years to begin to make some very smart and very productive investments in service. You might know that starting March 1st, we actually restored some frequencies to our frequent service bus lines, to 12 lines that actually carry 48% of our bus customers. We've also will have another increment of service improvement starting here in September 1st. So we will see really over a stretch of a couple of years something on the order of $7 to $10 million worth of service improvement in the TriMet region. And we are, again, focused on getting that service to be efficient and to serve a number of people. The other thing that we've done is to actually turn our attention to our capital needs. We have accelerated our bus replacement program, taking care of the assets that we have invested in over a number of years. Many of you know the East Side Light Rail line is now approaching its 30th birthday. And we are continuing to invest in the stations and in safety improvements along that line, bringing it up to the standards that we now would see related to brand new construction. Matter of fact, we have safety improvements this year in Gresham, at Division, Main, Roberts, and Hood. And finally, one thing I would just note about new service, we are, of course, working on another new light rail line, the Portland-Milwaukee project, which features a new crossing across the Willamette River, now named the Tillicum Crossing. One of the things we're proud of is that project is on time, under budget. It has brought on the order of 11,000 jobs to this region, frankly, during a time that we needed them the most. We've 80% of the firms that are hired on that job have been Oregon-based. We've contributed $158 million in revenue to 127 disadvantaged business firms. So again, we're excited about the project. It's well advanced, and it will open in September of 2015. So that sort of sets the stage for beginning to look ahead, to look to the future. And that's really what I wanted to focus on a bit more today, and get your thoughts and observations about. We are in a position right now in this region where we have a strong transit system. According to the Brookings Institute, 83% of our region's workforce, which includes Clark County in this case, has access to transit. That's pretty good. But you know what? We need to do better. And we need to make the connections and the service even more efficient for the average user. For example, and Allison mentioned it earlier, vacant industrial land like at the Gresham Vista Industrial Park becomes a great opportunity for this region, but also a great opportunity for us to offer new kinds of service to those industrial areas. One model for beginning to look at this and plan this, we tried about 1.5 years ago on the west side, and we worked with Intel and Nike and many of the other West Side Economic Alliance and the chamber organizations there to develop something we called a service enhancement plan. And that was bringing all those stakeholders together to provide us ideas and inputs on what the transit system of the future should look like. What would a transit system that served those industries well look like? And we, I think, out of that created a very successful plan that has a lot of resonance and a lot of community support and buy-in. So we're taking that model out here to East Portland and East Multnomah County. And what we want to do is begin to develop that same kind of plan. Steve Couts, who's here with us, is actually leading that effort for TriMet. And we are underway right now talking and working with stakeholders. And so this is a perfect time to let us know what your vision of the transit system of the future for the Gresham area should be. And we're very much looking forward to working with you on that. I would just tell you that we are hearing some particular themes as we reach out to the Gresham community. One is that we need more frequent service in some of the major corridors like Sandy, Halsey, Stark, Powell-Division, of course, but also much better north-south service throughout this area. And streets like 122nd, 181st, 223rd, and 257th all get on the list as important north-south corridors to really create much more robust service to many parts of this of the Gresham area. We also hear things about adding perhaps more service earlier or later than we do currently during the weekdays, but also a bit more on weekends. And we also hear things about what we call community shuttles, and we have an experiment underway right now in Forest Grove, a service called Grove Link, which is providing connections around the Forest Grove area and actually delivers people to downtown where they can make connections to the TriMet service there, our Line 57, and as it happens to be in Forest Grove, but also provide that sort of service that allows people to actually access their local institutions as well. So there are a number of other topics that we like to cover in these service enhancement plans. Sometimes it's something we call the last mile. And while perhaps the light rail line is efficient in getting people to a particular port in Gresham, sometimes their ultimate destination is just a little too far away to walk. So how do you begin to bridge those distances? And there are some creative solutions related to that that we're experimenting with throughout the region. And finally, while Councilor Craddock will certainly elaborate a bit on this, we are very engaged and very excited about the Powell-Division corridor work that is underway right now at Metro. We're excited about a new tool called Bus Rapid Transit that can begin, we believe, to offer a higher quality, a higher level of service to the citizens of the corridor. And also perhaps help with the economic development of the corridor. And that's, I think, an important, if you will, input into the planning efforts. How can we do that best with a bus rapid transit system? And I would tell you that related to that, this is not an area where we have all the answers. We have, frankly, a very open position here in terms of listening to those of you in the community to really begin to tell us how to shape this project and how to shape the service that will result from it. So we do want to hear from you about your vision for that corridor and how it can help your region's economic development needs. And so with that, perhaps I'll hand off to Councilor Craddock, and then we can get to much more interesting questions and answers following that.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to be here today as their representative on the Metro Council. This is a very important project from my perspective. I highly value the role that Metro plays in the region on helping us improve our economy. When I was on the Gresham City Council, I quickly realized and learned and recognized the role that Metro can play and what a benefit can bring to the east part of the Metro region. And I think this is one project that can really help make a difference. Councilor Stacey was going to join me here today. He is my colleague. We are co-steering committee chairs for the Powell-Division corridor study. He has an elbow injury, broke his elbow in a bicycling accident, unfortunately, and is in a healing process, so chose not to be here today. So I'm representing both of us on the Metro Council. So why are we doing this? Why is this project so important? Well, several years ago, the Metro region just put together a high-capacity transit plan and say, how do we help people move in our region more efficiently, more effectively, faster? And out of that plan came several projects that we want to focus on, and one of those is the Powell-Division corridor study. It actually came right to the top of the list because it's one of the busiest corridors in the Metro region. Almost 8,000 people every day travel ride the Powell-Division bus. Almost 9,000 people a day travel the Division bus each day. At the PCC on 82nd and Division, more than 18,000 people a week get on and off a bus, enough to fill the Timber Stadium. So it's a heavily used corridor already, and how do we make this corridor even better? It takes over 12 extra minutes right now to get from Gresham down to 82nd during rush hour. So how do we improve that and make it an easier way for people to get there faster? The ridership just keeps going up. As Mr. McFarland was talking about the light rail system, over 30% of the traffic that's on the Banfield, the light rail carries each day. So just think if those people were not on that max, what would that impact that would have on that corridor. So a transit system is a significant value to our region, to all of us, to be able to make our life experience better, to get around, and to be able to get to where we want to go. So why do we do this? Why in the Metro region do we focus on transit? Why is that so important to us? Well, we all want to get around. We need to get to the grocery store. We need to get to our children to school. We need to get to our jobs. How do we do that more efficiently and effectively and more easily? As more people are going to be moving to the Metro region, we expect another 700,000 people to be moving here over the next 20 years. Where are those people going to live? Where are they going to get to their jobs? And how can we help them move about efficiently and effectively and reduce congestion? Transit plays a significant role in that. Transit also is a benefit to help us with our environment. The benefit it has on reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, the benefit it has on reducing adding toxins to our environment. So transit is a significant role in helping us make a better place to live. So our responsibilities to our region is to how to continue to make the Portland Metro region the best place to live. We're very fortunate that all of us want to live here. We move here because it's such a great place. Look at this area. Without being able to plan together and work together, we are really it would impact our quality of life. So we want everybody to have good access to transportation. You want to have choices. You want to be able to choose what way you're going to get around. There'll be some of us that will probably choose a car most of the time because it's the only way we are going to be able to get to work or get to our job. But we want to make transit available to all of us so we can choose and have a choice if we don't want to use a car. So So what are we going to do about all of this? Well, one of the projects that, as Mr. McFarland was talking about, is the Powell-Division corridor study. In looking at already a transit corridor that's already heavily used, this is not coming in and building a new system and trying to impose a transit for people that aren't using transit. This is transit. This is a corridor that people already use it. So how do we make it even better? So there's a steering committee has been formed looking at these the options on what we might be able to do. Federal government requires us to look at multiple ways to be able to multiple high capacity transits. We'll be looking at the role that maybe a light rail might play, a bus rapid transit, and even a streetcar. But we already know that the likelihood that it probably will be the selection that will be coming out of this is a bus rapid transit. So Councilor Stacy and I are the chairs of the steering committee. We've already met twice, and we'll be meeting again in September. These are all public meetings. I hope that you will follow and check the link out on the Metro website, and then you can sign up for regular updates. And I would invite you to join and come to these meetings to listen to the discussion and be able to give your input. I want to thank that we have many people already in the east part of the region that are already engaged in this. Thanks to Councilor Lori Stegman, Council President, City of Gresham City Council. She's on the steering committee. Chair Diane Noriega, who is the chair of the Mount Hood Community College School Board. Matt Wan, president of the East Metro Economic Alliance. John Bildso, who is very involved in the Gresham Coalition of Neighborhoods. But then we also have businesses involved. We have Fred Meyer, who I don't know if you recognize or know that Fred Meyer's headquarters is on the Powell-Division corridor. Catholic Charities has their headquarters on the Powell-Division corridor. The Powell-Division corridor has multiple schools. Depending on the route this is going to take, we have the opportunity to connect Portland State University with OHSU on the waterfront, with PCC at 82nd and Division, David Douglas High School, Centennial High School, Gresham High School, and then on out to Mount Hood Community College. I've been traveling in front of the college when a bus comes by, and I often there's more students waiting to get on that bus than there are seats on the bus. So how do we make it even easier for the students to get to the school? Of course, Mount Hood Community College has such a significant role in the east part of the region, and many of our students, that's their first entry into higher education. And so how do we make it easy for them to get to school? Right now, if they choose to use to the max and come out to Gresham, it takes almost another 40 minutes to travel from downtown Gresham to the college by waiting for the bus and then the transfer and then on to the college. So staff has really been working hard. Brian Momberg is here today. He is the project manager for the project. Many of you probably already know him. He was the project manager for the East Metro Connections Plan, and this is one of the projects that's come out of that. Elissa Gertler is here today. She's the Director of Planning and Development for Metro. And then we have, of course, multiple partners that are participating in this. Of course, TriMet is a significant partner. The Metro region plans where these lines are going to go, and then TriMet builds them. They're very good at building these projects. Then we have, of course, the City of Gresham. Catherine Kelly is here today, Transportation Planner for the City of Gresham. Who am I missing? Oh, thank you, Brian. Thank you. Brian with the Planning Department at City of Gresham. I kind of follow Brian around. Wherever he goes, I follow behind him. So this is a wonderful partnership between many jurisdictions, many organizations, looking ahead at how we're going to focus on this project. So the goal is, where are we going to come out of this? Is a better way to get around, a faster way to get around, looking at what can we do about economic development along this corridor, where those stations are going to be, how do we make this the most efficient system that we can. We have a lot of options with bus rapid transit, and then of course safety. How do we make the transit stops, make sure they're safe? How do we safety on the vehicle itself? A lot of people have a lot of comfort when they know that there's a bus driver on the bus, and that's an option that bus rapid transit can provide. And of course, how do we make the trips quicker? Can you get from Gresham to downtown Portland, Gresham to 82nd, faster than we do now? We can't build ourselves out of congestion. Where we put the roads, and we know that as soon as you build a road, it fills up very quickly. So what are those other options for us to get around? So we hope that you'll participate in these discussions and be part of this. We want your input to help us make it the best system we can, help us figure out what we're going to do about the economic development along this route and the opportunities for the east part of the region. So I really appreciate your interest and your willingness to be here today and to help us to have these discussions. I hope there'll probably be over the next year a decision's going to be made about the route and about the form of transit. So please be involved and particularly give your input on what route you think is be the best option for this. So I'm going to stop there and see if there's any comments or questions or about this. And of course, Mr. McFarland is here too.
Thank you. And actually, Dr. Scott Hansen had his hand up first.
Thanks. Can I sit down? Thanks so much for being here today. I think that everybody understands the value of mass transit, and as I've traveled throughout the world, in Sapporo, Japan, and New York City, and places that have good subway systems, ways that we actually get people to places faster than you can walk or ride or take a car. I mean, it's faster. Unfortunately, in this area, it's not that way. I'm sure that everybody in this room this morning took a car here. We had different leadership years ago, there would have been a mounted freeway that would have been about a mile away from here that is no longer in the books. And, I had friends whose property was condemned to build that freeway years ago, but that got killed. And my business happens to be, a block and a half from not just the MAX line, but from a MAX stop. And I've seen what that's done to my business. You talk about customers coming to our businesses that ride TriMet, or our employees that take mass transit. And in my 25 years in practice, I've had 5 patients that have actually taken light rail and 0 employees that have ever ridden mass transit to my office. Yet I pay those employee taxes that you talk about. And so, as a lot of government people that plan sit around, and sometimes those of us who are just citizens who get around and sit around and eat dinner together and talk about getting around and places we've been, we feel like the people who are planning don't live in our world. That you want us to take mass transit, but everybody here today took a car, and surely you can't get off of this hill without driving a car. You might drive it to the MAX line, but you have to go there and park there. So you'd say you can't build your way out of it, but when I go to places like San Diego or Jacksonville, Florida, or Salt Lake City, and I see they do both. They not only put in mass transit, which is good, and I'm a big supporter of it. I think it's a great idea, but you say that one of the things is we want to help shape the region, but it seems like the planners want us to not be in cars. They want to do everything we can. We're 24th in size, 9th in the mass transit, but they say that our congestion is the 4th, that we have the 4th worst congestion in the nation. Without building some roads, without taking the lane diets that foster, to see my son who lives down by the OHSU, I go down Foster. So what are they going to do? They're going to take 2 lanes of 50 blocks of Foster and remove the cars from it to make my commute to Portland even longer. So all these things that the mass transit, it seems like we're getting rid of cars when Gresham goes from half a mile south of here to the Columbia River. It's such a broad area, you can't have mass transit everywhere. Don't we have to do both? Don't we have to build lanes as well as take lanes away to put in mass transit, put in the rapid transit? If all we do is take away lanes of traffic without ever building a road, because I can't remember the last time a major road was built in this area. I mean, can anybody remember the last time a road was built? And so we've got to do something to realize that people, we are maybe the next generation, but we still drive cars, and we have to address that need, and I don't see anybody talking about that in any way, shape, or form. I'd like to hear an answer to why we don't talk about building a road here or there.
Well, actually,
as well as the other stuff.
Actually, we are doing it all, and that's the goal of this. How do we have choices in this region to get around? The East Metro Connection Plan that Brian chaired, and I was also a member of, was exactly what that project was all about, is how do we increase and enhance mobility and connectivity in the east part of the region, particularly in the north-south corridors from the I-84 to Highway 26. And this project is one of those that came out of that, and so we're doing both. And so we were already looking at, we learned in the East Metro Connection Plan that we really have a good grid system in East Multnomah County. We have 4 major corridors that connect 84 with 26, and what we're doing now is beginning to focus on how do we make those corridors even better. And it's the City of Gresham, City of Portland, are all focusing on that. One of the first pieces of funding that we got is how do we enhance 238/242nd. And so one of the projects that we focused on first is how do we improve the ability for traffic to get up the hill in Wood Village, particularly freight. And we're in the design phase, and we're going to be moving on to the construction phase in the next few years. So that's part of the East Metro Connection Plan, is creating that connectivity, focusing on what we can improve on 257th, 181st, and 207th or 6th and 223rd. The City of Gresham is focusing on the other end of 242nd. They're going to, how can we widen 242nd so it's 4 lanes all the way and easily, particularly between Division and Powell. So that's a project that they're looking at. They're looking at the ITS systems, the signaling systems, so the signaling systems interact and connect with each other, and our smart systems, and can change as the traffic is, pattern changes. So we are doing it, and this is one project out of the East Metro Connection Plan that is focusing on those multiple choices. Because you're right, we all don't go to Portland for a job. I mean, obviously, I bet in this room, most of us work out in this part of the region. So we need to do it all. It's a big region. Lots of people live here. Half the state of Oregon live in the metro region. So we're looking at all those options, and transit is just one of those choices.
The initial stage here of really just deciding what the corridor is going to be. So from there is really all of the actual planning and engineering and acquisition, I'm going to guess, is going to have to occur too. So what's the projection really of when something that might actually begin construction, what's that time, and over how many years, and whoops. And then lastly, do we expect this to start way over on the west side, or is it possible we might start at the easterly end and work that way?
Well, one of the exciting things about, I think, this project is that it has the potential of actually being here in relatively few years. One of the things about, if you will, what we're more experienced with in this region is the long run-up to a light rail project, which oftentimes is 10 to 15 years. In this case, we can actually foresee, for example, should the choices that the steering committee and the region make together to be a bus rapid transit system, we could actually see that system in place by the end of this decade. So it can move pretty quickly. And part of that, though, will be what choices are made related to rights-of-way and use of existing rights-of-way versus new rights-of-way, and all of that can make it a lot more complicated and a lot more time-intensive. So a lot of those choices are in front of us. But this does not need to be a long-term 20-year solution. This is something that can be here this decade if we really have a consensus within the region to move ahead on it. And just to reemphasize one of the points that Councilor Craddock made is that this is already a very heavily utilized corridor. We have approaching 20,000 rides a day on that Powell-Division corridor right now on the east side of Portland. As a matter of fact, some of our buses are regularly crowded, overcrowded, particularly along Division on a pretty regular basis. So we see some need for this corridor not only to draw new people to transit, but to serve the customers that we currently serve in the Powell-Division corridor in a more effective way.
I think one of our biggest concerns, sorry, Andre, is really the connections for Mount Hood Community College. I think that from many of us out here, we think that's a critical issue, and so that's why I asked, is there some phasing? So, because of all of the needs, and there are many folks along the line, I think that's one of the greatest.
And I would just also note that I think what I described our efforts related to the service enhancement plan is really important related to hearing from you about the importance of that connection. And one of the things that I would just share with you is that as our system has grown over time, we've recognized a great synergy and partnership with all the community colleges, whether it be Portland Community College, Clackamas, or Mount Hood. And when we start looking at it, we have very overlapping markets in terms of the people that we serve. And so, again, strong partnerships with the community colleges has been something that we have been emphasizing and trying to improve as they have over time. The other thing is that whole world of education is changing. When you begin to talk to the leadership of the community colleges, the concentration of certain programs at certain institutions is becoming more the business model, which means that mobility around the region and connections to those campuses become more and more important. And you know, that's emphasized really with every time I talk to a community college president, they emphasize their drive to offer programs more efficiently, which often means they need to offer them in fewer locations and to centralize the delivery of those educational services to their customers. And so again, the mobility between those campuses become even more important. And that's, I think, just to emphasize, again, another point that Councilor Craddock made, I think the power of this Powell-Division connection, Portland State at one end, OHSU, and the various PCC and Mount Hood campuses all along the line become really a very important, I think, driver of not only ridership for us, but also you know, part of economic development is developing our people, the skills and the education of our workforce, and so it becomes critical in that regard.
Neil, I'm gonna address the 800-pound gorilla in the room for TriMet. Crime. What are you seeing? Is it up? Is it down? And what's being done about it?
So, well, thank you for that question, because I love to answer it, because right now I've got some terrific news. But, you know, I would first of all start to say that TriMet is a reflection of the community. And the community rides TriMet. If there's crime in the community, there's going to be some crime on TriMet. That said, when we compared last year's statistics to the previous year, crime on our system overall was down 25%. So we have made some dramatic improvements in that regard. I think part of that was a program when I last talked to this forum about, was beginning a much stronger program of fare enforcement, which we've been doing, and beginning to step up patrols and presence on the system. And so that's had an effect. I would tell you that the crime around some of the key Gresham stations is down even more than 25%. So we have been making some good progress in that regard, and we have very strong partnerships with all the local agencies out here. Many of you know that our Transit Police Division are not officers that are hired by TriMet directly. We contract with the City of Gresham or the City of Portland or many other jurisdictions, and so they have bring a lot of local knowledge. I would also just add to that the establishment of the East Side Precinct here has been, I think, very helpful in bringing officers together who really know the territory and frankly know the characters that they're dealing with in a very effective way, and I think have helped reduce that crime overall. Finally, and this may be a longer answer than you want, one of the things that we have also learned as we've developed the next legs of the light rail system is we've improved design standards. And so now we're bringing some of those community safety related design standards back to the original line. And we've done that certainly at some stations already, and we will be expanding that effort over the next 5 years, and we'll be touching every station. An example of what we do is that we create fare paid zones so that the only people who are legitimately on a light rail platform have a fare in their hand. But to do that, we have to make sure that the fare payment machines are moved, if you will, off board, so that there's a very clear delineation of the area that a fare-paying passenger should be and somebody who shouldn't be there, so that we have the ability to actually distinguish that. Other efforts that we're making are sort of better visibility and better lighting on the platforms as well. And again, over the next 5 years, you'll see a complete transformation of the platforms and the stations along the light rail line here in Gresham. So I think it's a generally positive report right now.
So just one more question about the rapid transit. You know, it's going to be a dedicated lane for buses, correct? Is that the vision? I mean,
So
well, I guess what I would worry about, because buses, when light rail came in, it took a lot of the bus lines away, and people went from buses to light rail. And buses seem to be the most efficient, the best way to move people around, to change routes when the demographics change, when populations change, when needs change. If they could just make cutouts on Powell-Division so that the buses use the same lanes the roads do, instead of making a dedicated lane for the bus, just have more cutouts so they can pull off to the side and increase your buses, put 30, 40, 50, put a lot more buses on those same, thoroughfares. You could increase your ridership. You could do it a lot cheaper than you could if you had to build a whole new dedicated system. You had to make it seems to be a lot cheaper, a lot more efficient. And then when demographics change, you don't have a system that's, not in the right place at the right time.
So just to note, there's actually two sides to that coin, but those kinds of trade-offs and decisions you just described are exactly the kinds of trade-offs and decisions that this study is all about. Is where do you need a dedicated lane, where don't you, and where do pullouts make sense, where don't they? But the idea is to make the trip more faster and more efficient for those who are on the bus, as well as then preserving the capacity for what I call the higher volume, higher value things like freight movement and others in our overall system. So those trade-offs that you described are exactly the kind of trade-offs that we'll be addressing in the Powell-Division corridor study.
But isn't the decision already made, though?
No, there has been no decision made, and we're in the broad study.
So I talk about this with my friends all the time, and they say, we can come to these things and say that we would like to just have pullouts instead of dedicated lanes, but that would never happen no matter how many people wanted it.
So
that's our opinion. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're dead wrong, but that's just.
So, not to be too direct, but you are wrong in that case, because we are actually in the point. Because we actually are in the point where we're making those trade-offs now. And remember, there are trade-offs. If you're in a car, some of the strategies you may make more sense. If you're on the bus, another strategy make more sense. So there'll be. Well, that's one of the calculations that we'll be in the midst of as we move ahead. But frankly, no decisions have been made related to that. And I want to just assure everybody we're at the very early stages of that. And that's why we're here talking and soliciting some ideas. Related to the permanence versus non-permanence, if you will, the bus versus rail, listen, 60% of our riders use the bus. I'm a bus guy myself. I ride the bus every day. I understand the value of it. But there is also a certain value to a permanence of a corridor. And we've seen that related to the economic development of the region. And those are trade-offs, again, that we need to consider as we think about the future of this overall corridor. The rail system, as it's been developed, has allowed the attachment of some really important civic institutions, as well as a lot of development along it. I think that's actually been a great organizing principle for the growth of the region. And when you look at areas that grow up around a light rail station, they tend to have much higher transit ridership, and they're people who are, frankly, developing a lifestyle that is not an auto-oriented lifestyle. And so, as a region, we need to offer all of those opportunities. And I think that gets back to that trade-off between roads and transit. It's not or, it's yes to both. And we need to make sure that we offer those opportunities for everyone.
I have a question. A comment about the crime issue. Maybe some of the crime is down because the community had put a lot of pressure on the meth clinic on 162nd. It is gone, and I'd be curious to see if there's a correlation between that being gone and crime being down as people were coming and going from the clinic, but that's another day, another dollar. Shirley, I'm a real visual person. Division has 4 lanes plus turn lanes from here to downtown, but Powell only is a single lane from here to, I think, 205. I don't think it, just right at where TriMet is by the old drive-in theater, now that I'm really aging myself. But never used it, though. So the vision for Powell would be very different than the vision for Division, I would think. And the turnout, I drive Powell a lot now, and to put more buses on that lane would make my drive so much more congested and long, because they don't pull off. The back ends are still out. You can't go around them, and I mean, it's very difficult. Then turnout sounded good, but all the businesses that are along there. I'm a victim of TriMet. I'm a victim of light rail. I'm not going to go into that, but the victims, as we're proceeding, are, yes, we have to move transit, but there's also businesses all along there, homeowners that have had their property there for years and years and years. So being part of the conversation is great, but Shirley, can you give me the vision? Are we moving in a direction of widening Powell? Are we moving in a direction of building a bridge over the whole area? Or, what are we doing?
Well, that's why exactly why we're looking at two corridors. They call it the Powell-Division Transit Corridor, and that's exactly what's going to be evaluated, is what is the best route for this transit system that won't impede or won't interfere with the current people that live there and businesses, but also will enhance the current for the people that live there and businesses there. And we already know that the corridor from downtown Portland, a Powell corridor from downtown Portland to 82nd is a better corridor than Division. They switch, it's 4 lanes on Powell and from 82nd to downtown Portland. It's 2 lanes on Division from 82nd to downtown Portland, and it switches. So that's why this is called the Powell-Division Transit Project, because they're going to be looking at where's the best place to put the stops and to have the least disturbance to the people and the businesses that are along there. I don't know, Brian, if you want to talk about some of the the bus rapid transit. One thing that's really nice about it, it's so flexible. So it's going to probably be all of the above. When you say is it going to be one have its own corridor, probably not. It's going to probably go back and forth. It's going to probably use the road in some areas. It's going to probably have its own dedicated road right away in another area. So that's exactly what this project is all about, is trying to figure out how do we place this system and so it has the least disturbance but has the most impact and positive impact on the neighborhoods and the businesses that are along there. And they'll be using signaling systems that the bus will have control over some of the signals, be able to make sure it's a green light for the bus. The bus is going to be able to pull out at certain intersections, be able to go first. So when the light changes, the bus will move out ahead of the traffic. So there's a lot of things. It's going to be a bigger bus, so it can hold more people. So there's more room on the bus for more people to use it. I don't know if you want to add anything, Brian, on some of the technical parts of this, or Neil, on how the bus rapid transit system works.
Thank you, Councilor Craddock. So as Councilor Craddock mentioned, I think one of the great opportunities we have with this is that there are so many choices to be made with flexibility about the vehicle type. The fact that it is a bus means that it could operate in traffic or outside of traffic. And what we really are doing in the study right now is trying to look at both of those roads, look at what the opportunities are, what the traffic is, and where we can really build in the efficiencies and where we can make sure to preserve capacity. I think one of the exciting things in the partnerships that we've been having and hearing is, for example, we mentioned Fred Meyer and their headquarters, and that Fred Meyer is right on the corridor. In addition to their headquarters there, they move a lot of freight traffic because they bring trucks from Clackamas County and they bring them to 26 and Powell and they break them down to do deliveries. One of the things we're trying to look at is not only can we build efficiencies into the bus transit system, is there might be opportunities for mutual partnerships that really can help preserve benefit and improve capacity in some places, roads or for freight and good traffic. So one of the exciting things we're really looking at right now are the economic development. As we mentioned, the connections to jobs at Gresham Vista, the connections to helping improve freight and goods movement where we have the opportunity to do that.
No, I would also note that there are a number of, if you will, elements of bus rapid transit that can be used like a toolbox, pick and choose. So, but typically there's nicer stations. There's typically, you can perhaps buy your ticket at the station, not on the bus itself, although some of that will become less and less important as TriMet moves toward an electronic fare system, which we're in the process of. So there's a lot of different elements that can contribute to that, and it's very much a blank palette right now for us all to fill in with our ideas and thoughts about what the best alternatives are.
Yes, early in your presentation, you mentioned that the riders on the various modes of transportation are your clients, and therefore kind of treated as clients similarly to all of the businesses and the clients that we have. I know that we all pay a significant contribution to the cost of that ridership. I'm curious what that ratio is, if there are any figures available. If the cost of a ride is $20, how much does the rider pay and how much is subsidized? And the second part of that question is, it'd be nice, I can't use transit because of the nature of my business. I'm a contractor. We're spread across 3 states. My project managers are running all over the place. So this is not going to work for us. But there's theoretically an economic development component to that subsidy. So the second part of the question is, can you shed any light on, or do you have any figures as to what the real impact of that subsidy is on the economics of the region?
So let me just sort of start off first about sort of the economics of TriMet in general. If you think about the pie chart, about 54% of our revenue comes from the payroll tax. 23 to 25%, depending upon the year, comes from the fare box. And that's the passes and the cash fares that are paid. And the rest come from grants, largely federal governmental grants, but we also get a snippet of cigarette tax, which is one of those diminishing revenue sources, which I think we're all sort of glad about overall. But nonetheless, there are a few little subventions that come to us in that regard. So that's generally the picture. And the cost per ride on TriMet is actually a very admirable number when you get to it. We're actually offering, for example, light rail rides now on average will cost somewhere between $1.75 and $2 a ride. And that means that the fare recovery on a mode like light rail is much higher than that 25% you see overall, 23% you see overall. On certain bus lines, we can say the same thing, where we have a lot of heavy use. The fare recovery ratio, as we call it, and we watch this carefully, actually increases. An average bus ride for us costs a little bit over $3 on average, but for frequent service lines, that's down to on the order of $2.50, $2.60. Might not have the exact numbers, but those are orders of magnitude. So, but I would also note, related to those different missions of TriMet, I noted that there are, again, different kinds of services we offer, and some of them are not what you would call greatly efficient. So, for example, our door-to-door lift rides for seniors and people with disabilities, and again, you have to qualify for that based on your disability and your mobility needs. Those rides cost on the order of $30 each, and they're almost entirely subsidized. We do charge a reduced fare for people who are, as we term the category, honored citizens, seniors and people with disabilities. And so that's a very heavily subsidized service. So again, it really depends on the general service, but the general mass transit you're talking about here does, I think, have a pretty efficient cost structure when you compare us to our peers. And that's to a large extent because we have a pretty high ridership, as I noted earlier, 100 million rides a year, which makes us really one of the larger transit systems for a city of our size, particularly given that we're a newer western city. Related to your question about overall economic development or benefit, I don't have one number that I can tell you, but I can tell you that along our light rail lines, for example, there's been over $8 billion worth of development. I can tell you that the Texas Transportation Institute figure of the transit system saves about $150 million a year in congestion costs. I can also tell you that for certain destinations, we serve a very high proportion of the population. So for example, for commuters to downtown Portland, we're serving about 45% of those on the transit system. Similarly for students to Portland State University. So the characteristic of a transit system is it may not serve absolutely every, as we've talked about. There needs to be multiple modes and multiple opportunities. but what we can do is serve certain populations or certain destinations really well and really effectively. But to that end, the other opportunity I would just note is our service enhancement planning effort, which may offer some other opportunities that we need to hear from the Gresham community about, where we can actually begin to offer, again, good service locally, and how best to do that. I hope that answered your question.
Great. I found this conversation really interesting this morning, and I think it's really, really important. And I'm fascinated by the continued discussion about the balance between automobiles and public transportation. And I think there's a tendency for most of us, and understandably so, that when, the further out you live from the central business district of Portland, the more auto-dependent we generally are. But I want to share this with you. I've had the opportunity to do 2 mixed-use developments in partnership with Metro through their transit-oriented development program. And we just completed one in historic downtown Hillsborough, which is, it's out there. If you've been to historic downtown Hillsborough on their main street, it's a suburban location. It's emerging, it's kind of transitioning to more urban, but it's out there. And what I wanted to share with you is that the first 8 people that leased apartments at our new project, 4th Main, none of them had a car. Not a single one of them had a car. Now, bear in mind, I've got an expensive below-grade parking garage waiting for those cars at $75 a slot. So it wasn't just necessarily great news for me. But and they're also all younger. And I guess the way I just want to encourage that we, even though we're here in Gresham, we're out distance-wise, and we are kind of auto-dependent. We need to be thinking forward. And the future is our children and the youth. And they're very much more acclimated to multimodal forms of transportation. We got to be thinking about their future. And having good mass transit, even out in the suburbs, it's where the future is. And so I think the balance is necessarily tilting. And understand, I'm not personally a user of mass transit, but my kids, they just live on it. And so, and I think that's where the future is. I do want to make one comment on safety or question. Even my children, who just daily use mass transit, there's certain times of the day they're just not going to. That's just like they're unabashed about using it most times. But then I'll say, well, why aren't you taking light rail downtown? Well, you don't get on that thing at this hour. And so my thought on that is when you're distributing your security resources, I don't think there's much fear about getting on light rail at 8 a.m. in the morning or the buses when they're absolutely full. It seems to me that the downside is when there's less people around and less density of population. And then I think if you had some security present during those times, it might enhance ridership.
I appreciate that, and I would just tell you that we have a very proactive and reactive series of assignments related to our Transit Police Division, as well as our fare inspectors, so that we do exactly what you're suggesting, which is to look at the times of day when things occur, when fare evasion occurs and when crime occurs, and frankly, those are kind of related when you start to get into our system. And we do deploy resources more forcefully and in greater number during those times of day and days of the week. But you're absolutely right. There is a different characteristic as the use of the day goes on.
I wanted to say I really appreciate the efforts that are being made and for input and for community activity and what have you. But what I do know from the business perspective is businesses are running their business and so don't have time necessarily to come to the open houses and that type of thing. So what I am just asking is encouraging TriMet and the Powell-Division project to actually reach out and make appointments with businesses and go into businesses to talk to them to seek out that input, because as we all are economically oriented and to create, our own sustainability and prosperity as well as jobs, if you're doing that, you can't always get out to the public meeting or what have you. And so I think it does take extra effort on the part of the organizers and the planners to actually do that outreach. And I would encourage you to do so. And, as an organization connected with business, we're happy to help with that. And I've talked to Steve about it. I have Erica Fitzgerald sitting next to me with the City of Gresham. We have a list of traded sector businesses that we can help make contacts to make appointments. We have an HR group where we can do that type of thing. But I think it's really key because I've been to many meetings with public comment where I was the only business organization there. And we do have to have that balance between residents and the high frequency users and the other side of the coin as well. So more of a comment than a question.
I absolutely right on in terms of the comment, and we agree with that. And I would just say that the same thing is true. Certainly, we're talking about businesses here today, but the same thing is true of our residents. Is that it's an increasingly busy life. It's hard to get people to really weigh in, and so we keep looking for new and better ways to connect and communicate. And so that's a daily effort on our part. But I do appreciate that comment and agree with it entirely.
Regarding public input, we're going to, in fact, this Saturday at the Gresham Library, we're going to have an open house, and I hope that you might encourage your fellow people in the chamber to maybe participate. It's from 10 to 3, and it's just an open house about this, so anybody that wants to drop in and be able to talk with staff and fill out any kind of information. I know that staff are doing all they can to get input, and so I think it's an excellent idea. I'll look into, talk to Brian on what's being done about making sure that we approach specific more businesses and making it directly as opposed to trying to get them to participate in surveys. So.
All right. Thank you very much. To give our panel a hand this morning. And by the way, the citizen advisory committees that Councilor Craddock mentioned, we do post those meetings on our chamber weekly email. And so if you are interested in providing that input in a citizen advisory public committee setting, those meetings are announced on our weekly emails. And also the input is always valued by our leaders. These are the most accessible leaders that we have in our region. You can just call them up directly and give them your feedback, soapbox input on what you have. So thank you again for joining us this morning. Please take a few seconds to fill out our evaluation form, which gives us ideas of topics and speakers. And also we have pens, compliments of Riverview Community Bank. Thank you for providing those. Now, next month, we start our candidate forum series for our 2014 election cycle. We'll feature the state representative races in House District 50, 51, and 52. So we'll be joined by Dan Christensen and Carla Peluso running for state rep in House District 50, Representative Shemia Fagan and Jolie Bailey in House District 51, and Representative Mark Johnson and Stephanie Nystrom in House District 52. So please join us next month. That's August 26. Any other announcements that need to be made? All right, well, thank you very much for joining us, and have a great rest of the week.